On the evening of December 19th, 2019, I received a text that I stared at in disbelief as the words sent a chill down my spine. "Hey, Cheryl," the message began. "He pleaded guilty today. 50 to 100 years in prison. Sentencing is January 8th. He had confessed to 7 murders." The sender of the message was Jody Kinney, the cousin of my murdered friend and high school classmate. 16-year-old Michelle Kimberly Jackson's life was brutally snuffed out when she was sexually assaulted and strangled in Detroit, Michigan in January 1984. Her body had been found in an abandoned garage, only steps from a wintry bus stop where she waited alone for a bus to school. Several weeks prior to the text, I attended the initial arraignment of Kenneth Dupree, a now 73-year-old unemployed sexual offender who had been incarcerated for a number of felonies over his lifespan, including rape. After listening to graphic testimony from detectives at the scene and the medical examiner's report, I was too traumatized to attend the court hearing in which he would plead guilty to my friend's rape and murder. For over 30 years, I periodically imagined what her last moments must have been like. The fear and all-consuming terror she must have felt in that cold, dark space was a psychic death that no doubt preceded the physical one. Now reading Jody's text, I was sickened by news that illuminated a malevolent pattern I discovered while conducting research for my first book, which centered on the violent deaths of Black women being overlooked by both the media and the police. The book, You're Dead, So What? Media, Police, and the Invisibility of Black Women as Victims of Homicide, Michigan State University Press, 2015, was predicated on my PhD dissertation and examined how Black females were ignored by both media and law enforcement, in contrast to their white counterparts. Michelle's death is one of many sex-related homicides that have plagued a misogynoiristic, a hatred of Black women, and patriarchal society, where violence against Black women is an almost everyday occurrence. And yet her story is also a microcosm and reflection of a larger system of racial indifference and police corruption, as well as an overall disdain for women of color in America by the criminal justice system. The murders of Michelle and other Black girls and women, both cisgender and trans, shine a discomforting light on the reality that Black lives simply do not matter in a country whose inception of the American dream was literally built upon the plunder of Black bodies and the sexual commodification of Black female reproduction to proliferate slave labor. The creation of stereotypes that rendered Black females, irrespective of age, as unrapeable and consequently fodder for sexual predation has led to an increased vulnerability for Black girls and women. Collectively, they make up approximately 7% of the U.S. population, yet they comprised 36% of 2018 homicide victims in the U.S., and thus were 3 times more likely to die by homicide compared to white females. Nevertheless, their deaths are often ignored by mainstream media and are treated apathetically by law enforcement officials. And it is this disregard of, this irreverence for, Black women and girls by police that exposes them to an even greater likelihood that they will remain disproportionately vulnerable to lethal violence. To wit, an acutely disturbing element of Michelle's murder case, as well as of others, was that an innocent man, Eddie Joe Lloyd, spent 17 years in prison after being forced into a false confession by Detroit homicide investigators.